I want to share with you is one of the most tragic verses in the Bible. And it's found in Ezekiel chapter 22, verse 30. Israel has been unfaithful to God, which just is their pattern anyway. It's gone on for years and years and years they've been unfaithful. And finally God says it's time comes that they must make amends, that they must be punished, or at least He's going to withdraw His protection around the nation of Israel. He was looking for some reason not to do it. And God's always like that. He doesn't want to punish and withdraw His protection. He was looking for somebody that would just stand up and say, wait a minute, I'll lead Israel back. I'll be the one that, I won't give up on the nation. I'll lead them back. And this is what it says in Ezekiel 22:30. He says, I was looking for a man among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on behalf of the land, so I would not have to destroy it, but I found none. 3 tragic words. I found none. Can you see the picture? Can you just let that form in your mind? You see, in that day, the wall was a symbol of protection for the city. A city put its pride, its protection, its security in its gates and in its walls. And when there was a hole in the wall or the gates were broken down, it made those on the inside very vulnerable. And if you have that picture that a hole is in the walls or the gates are maybe torn down, God says, I'm looking for someone at this critical time to stand in that gap, to stand in that hole there. And can't you just picture, us growing up at the time we did, I just picture movie heroes. I'm seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger there, he's saying, no, sir, buddy, you got to get through me before you get to my people. Bruce Willis in Die Hard, Mel Gibson in Braveheart. I'm seeing all of these people standing there doing that. But God is looking for someone, He says, that will step up. Somebody will stand up and be a leader in the time of Israel's history when the political and the spiritual leaders of the day were just interested in their own selfish interest. And they did nothing for the people. Today, God would ask that question, maybe not who would stand in the gap of the wall, but He might say, I'm looking for somebody with integrity. I'm looking for somebody that will defend the defenseless. I'm looking for someone who would lay down their life, their very life, for their family. I'm looking for someone who, in a very selfish generation, would care more about the next generation than they do their own. He's looking for someone that says, I haven't given up. I haven't bowed down to other gods. I will fight to the bitter end for you, God. Men, women, moms, dads, singles, students, grandparents, someone to stand in the gap. And God is looking today in the world for that man. He's looking in America. He's looking in Washington, D.C. He's looking in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's looking in Martin County. He's looking in Macedonia. He's looking in the White House. He's looking in our house for that type of man or woman. See, Samson was one of those people who was to stand in the gap. And today we begin a series that's going to go on for 5 or 6 weeks looking at the life of Samson. The thing about Samson is that everybody knows at least a little about Samson. You think about that. We all know a little bit about Samson at least. And I say that because you probably cannot pinpoint the first time you learned about Samson. That's because we heard about him from the time we were born. The Bible stories and the stories that our moms and dads maybe read us at night, there was Samson. So we can't really even pinpoint when we started learning about him. But over the next month or so, we're going to try to learn not just about Samson, but learn from Samson, both the good and the bad in his life. His accomplishments are legendary, but so are his failures. And we can learn from both. Today, it's simply this. We're going to look at the attitudes that make strong men and women weak. Ladies, I'm going to go ahead and apologize to you. I'm going to default many times and just say men. I know I'm going to do it, but I'm not excluding you in that. I know I'm just talking about Samson, a man, and all this thing. But when I say men, I'm talking about all of us here. This is for all of us. The attitudes that make men and women weak. Samson had the God-given potential to be a kingdom mover and a world shaker, to be a difference maker in the world, someone to stand in the gap. But as you already know, because we do know so much about Samson, that's not necessarily how it worked out. Samson was an incredibly strong man with a dangerously weak will. And that's a dangerous combination. So, how does Samson's story, his little story, fit into God's big story? This is taking place during a period of history called the history of the Judges. And in your Bible, it's called, one of the books in the Old Testament is called Judges. This was a time when Israel did not have a king. They had a God who was to be the king, but they weren't following him. And because of their unfaithfulness, the nations around them conquered them. They would come in and take them over. They would pray to God. God would send somebody to deliver them, and they were called judges. They would come back to God. They would fall away again. God would send another judge, and this kept going over and over and over again. Samson was to be one of those judges. An angel appeared to Samson's parents and told them they would have a son. He told the mother that she was not to drink any wine or touch a dead body during her pregnancy. And when the boy was to be born, he would be born a Nazirite. And a Nazirite was a vow between a person and God that they would be totally devoted to God. Now, that was an inward vow between an individual and God. But there was an outward sign to show the world that they were different. They were devoted to God. They were never to drink alcohol. They were to never touch a dead body. And they were to never cut their hair. It says a razor was never to touch their hair. Now, I think those three things would be noticeable in our society, wouldn't you? Someone who never drank, never touched a dead body, and never cut their hair. I think they would stand out. And as we're going to see from this Nazirite vow and these three components, we're going to watch Samson break all of these. And we're going to see the destruction that came to him and the people around him because he did. Samson made some, I have to be careful here. I want to say, and I know they're children, I want to say dumb or stupid mistakes. Then the parents will say, I teach you not to say that, and the preacher says that. I know that I got to be careful. This came very real to me here not too many weeks ago, that what I say, the children hear and hear. You remember a few weeks back, I told the story about Andy Stanley, and when he was trying to teach his children responsibility, and he would say if they'd throw a towel on the bathroom floor and leave it, he'd say, now I want you to call your mother and tell her to come in here and pick that up. No, call your mother, because your irresponsibility leads to somebody else having to clean up your mess. Well, a couple of weeks after that, Monica Jones, that is Jerry and Nancy Jones' granddaughter, her mother said, go pick up the toys out of your room. She said, no, I think I'd rather have you do that. And she says, excuse me? And she says, go pick up your toys. She says, no, Mr. Gregg said that if you didn't want to do it, you could ask your mother to do it. So Monica had to get on the phone with Nancy, call over from Greenville, and get things straight. So I do realize I have to be careful in how I tell these things. So let's just say that Samson made some horrible decisions. I'll try to do my best and stay there. But why? Because of three attitudes in his life. Three attitudes, and that's what I want us to look at. The first one was lust. I want it. Samson's life was guided by I want it. I see it, I want it, I'm going to have it. An unbridled desire gives us tunnel vision. We see nothing on either side. We just see that thing that we want. It can be a lust for a new house, a new car, a boat, another person, to win at all cost, whatever. We pursue with reckless abandon. Let's look at Judges 14, and this is where we're going to spend all of our time today. If you want to turn there, Bible's in front of you, on the back of the pew in front of you there, and also on the screen. Judges 14, 1 through 3 says, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. Verse 3, his father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She's the right one for me. This was an enemy territory that he went to. This was Philistine enemy territory. His parents say, Aren't there any good girls around here that you can marry, that you don't have to break the laws of God? This was a law from God. It says, do not intermarry with the pagan people around you. And that was because they worship false gods. But lust makes us do these kinds of things. Lust or unbridled desire makes strong men and women weak. It makes us selfish. It makes us greedy. And in the end, it'll make fools of us all. It'll make us walk over or through the people around us, anything around us, any belief that we held to get what we want. As most of you know, I preached in New Bern at Two Rivers Church last week, and I hear planted by the associate minister, it was a trial sermon. I haven't heard back from them, but that's how some good rumors will get started, isn't it? But anyway, I was there, and I preached the first service, and I was waiting for the second service, and I'm standing in the back waiting to go up to preach, and a young man came in, and he walked through to go up, and I was just watching him. He was going to go. You could see he saw the people he wanted to sit with, and as he went down through the crowd, for some reason I zeroed on him, and he came up the aisle, and like he wants to sit in here in the middle here, but he'd have to crawl over all these people. But this pew was open. He went in this aisle and climbed over the pew, got up on the pew and went over. And I'd just seen the movie American Sniper, and I'm thinking somebody needs to take this guy out. You know, to do that in the middle of a service, go and climb over that, but he wanted to sit there. That's what unbridled desire causes us to do. We're going to do anything to get where we want to be. Second attitude is this: entitlement. I deserve it. You know the game we play with ourselves. Every one of us do it. I work hard. I deserve this. I do a lot of good things. I deserve to get to do this. I'm good. I'm a good this, or I'm a good that. I don't get paid enough, so I deserve to take this. I've earned it. I put up with so-and-so, so I deserve this. I deserve. I'm going to be honest with you. I've grown to, I can't say that word again. I can't say hate. I loathe the word deserve, because I see it lead so many people away from God, pursuing the things that they think they deserve, that they're entitled to. Back to Judges 14, verses 5 and 6 says, Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. It's like it was no big deal. He had just killed a lion, and he doesn't tell anybody. Number one, I'd have been screaming like a little girl. And number two, I'd have been taking selfies down beside the lion and everything. And I would be posting it and telling everybody what I had done. But he doesn't tell anybody. Verses 8 and 9. Sometime later, when he went back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass. In it was a swarm of bees and some honey, which he scooped out with his hands and ate as he went along. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they too ate it. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. First, this would have never happened with a woman. She was not going to eat anything that was found in a dead carcass. But men, we operate differently, don't we? A woman chooses the cleanliness of clothes whether or not it's hanging on a hanger, if it's in a closet, if it's in the drawers there. Men, we operate by the smell test. I can get another wear out of this. Yeah, if I spray enough of this on there, I can get another wear out of this. And that's number one. But secondly is this. Samson breaks the second vow to God. He was never to touch a dead body. And yet he does. For what? A handful of honey. And you go, who would be so, gotta watch my words again, who would be so horrible in making decisions? People do it every day. I've thought back in the history, and I'm a little older, so I think about some of these names, see if they mean anything to you. People who risk it all for something so temporary. Jim and Tammy Faye Baker had an empire, a Christian empire, if you want to call it that, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yet he had an affair with his secretary, lost it all. Jimmy Swaggart, Louisiana preacher, television ministry, got caught visiting a prostitute. Richard Nixon, remember the word Watergate? And every political pundit will tell you he had the election won. He didn't need to know what they had in the files there at Watergate, but he did. Bill Clinton, remember the name Monica Lewinsky? Risk everything. Now, you've got to notice I mentioned two preachers, a Democrat and a Republican. So I think I've covered about everything, and I doubled up on me, okay? All right. It's not just the rich and the powerful and the famous either. It's people like you and me every day that make these kind of decisions, that we risk everything that is important and everything that is eternal for something that is so temporary. We risk those things every day. Why? Because we feel like we're entitled to it. Everybody else has it. I deserve to enjoy this. And we risk our families and our witness and our futures and our relationship with God. And I don't care if I ever, for the rest of my life, see another family slowly drift away from God and the church because they deserved to enjoy the good things of this life. And quietly and slowly, the church and God was left behind. I don't care if I ever see that again. Judges 14:10 leads us to that third attitude. Now his father went down to see the woman, and Samson made a feast there, as was customary for the bridegrooms. Our third attitude is pride. I can handle it. I can handle it. Now this sounds innocent itself that he was having a wedding feast, having a feast there. That sounds innocent. It's very acceptable. But the Hebrew word that I was reading this week, I looked this up, the word there is mishta. And the word can be used for feast, but it can also be used for, it says, an occasion to drink. An occasion to get drunk. An excuse to get drunk. A drinking bout. In our day, we would say a keg party. And he took advantage. Samson breaks another vow by taking of the alcohol. He was where he shouldn't be, with a woman he shouldn't be with, doing things he shouldn't be doing. But you know what? I'm Samson, strongest man on earth. I can handle it. In my premarital counseling, someone that I'm going to perform a ceremony for, one of the things we do is we have a premarital counseling sessions. And I always try to cover some of the things that can slip into a marriage and rob you of your marriage. And one of the things we always end up talking about is alcohol. Now, I'm a teetotaler. I don't touch alcohol. I wish the Bible said that everybody, I wish that's what it said. I wish it would say your feet would fall off if you drank any. That's just how strong I feel about it, But the Bible doesn't. But it does talk about drunkenness. It does talk about our witness. It talks about our responsibilities to others. It talks about our responsibility to be in control of ourselves. And I always say this one thing when we're talking about these things, and alcohol in particular here. You social drink or drink this or party drink, well, long enough, it's going to bite you. At some point, it's going to bite you. I'm not talking about drunkenness even, but at some point, it's going to loosen your lips till you say something that you're going to pay for. At some point, it's going to lower your inhibitions, and you're going to do something with someone that's going to cost you. You're going to drink that same amount that you drank so many times and then drove home and never a problem, but you're going to get stopped in a routine check and barely blow enough for a DUI. And then you have the embarrassment that goes along with it. It's going to bite you at some time or another. Be very careful. Because the things that we can handle today may handle us tomorrow. And it's not just alcohol. It's our money. It's our time. It's our pleasures. It's our hobbies. It's our careers. It's our ambitions. It's the pills. It's the medicine we take. Why do you think that the number one drug problem in America is the illegal use of prescription drugs? It's because we think we can handle it. And one leads to two, and a third bottle, and a fourth bottle. Those kind of things. Pride tells us that we can handle it. But it is a lie straight from Satan. It's my life. I can handle it. No problem. I can handle it. I know what I'm doing. I can handle it. I want it. I deserve it. I can handle it. 3 attitudes that lead to destruction, that lead men, strong men and women, to make them weak. They did for Samson. They will for you. They will for me. God was a part of Samson's life from the very beginning. From his birth, he was there. Yet in the end, Samson ends up with his eyes gouged out and his hands shackled. And you say, well, Greg, are you saying that's going to happen to me? No. I'm saying something worse than that can happen. That we lose our witness. We lose our relationship with God. We lose our families. We lose way too much when we let the I want it, I deserve it, I can handle it attitudes lead us. And that's where we're going to leave it today. Not giving any solutions to anything today. What I want to ask you to do is this. I want you to think about these 3 things. When you make a decision, I want you to think about what came into play. Was it I want it, I deserve it, I can handle it? I want you to ask yourself those 3 things over and over and over this week. Those are 3 things that's easy to hang on to. You can remember those things. I want it, I deserve it, I can handle it. How does it play in to your decisions? Now, if your life is being guided too much, as you think this week, by those 3 things, and you're not pleased with that, you're not satisfied to see your life ruled by that, then come back next week. We're going to look at 3 attitudes, 3 God-given attitudes that take the place of these. And that's what we'll do next week.